الحمد لله رب العالمين صلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to Islamic OASIS Live. Dear brothers and sisters, I'm sure all of you are watching what's taking place in Yemen. The American response to Yemen, there has been a lot of activities in recent days in Yemen, with the Houthis being very active. Of course, there's a lot of fronts there. There is Iran, there is Yemen, there is Hezbollah, in Lebanon. The region is very active. The region is, it seems that it is on a brink of something. What it is, no one knows. Because although we are seeing a lot of activities, no one can predict what could be the next move. Does America want to go to war? Is America serious about war in the region? Do the countries in the region, do they want war? Do they want to extend the war beyond the borders of Gaza? To discuss all of this, alhamdulillah, tonight we have Dr. Abu Talha. Dr. Abu Talha is regular on this show. We constantly reach out to him every time when we are seeing some type of confusion when it comes to events taking place in the world, and to make sense of what's happening. And as far as being part of the Muslim region and trying to figure out what Muslims should understand and do. So inshallah, to begin, Dr. Abu Talha, welcome to Islamic OASIS Live.
Assalamu alaikum, brother, and thank you for having me on the show.
Abu Talha, obviously there's a lot going on in the region. The Houthis are making a lot of moves in the Red Sea. There is constant, of course, this area is very volatile in general. There is Somalia on one end, Yemen on the other end. Houthis being Shia, they seem to have a lot of support coming from Iran. We also understand what the role of Iran has been in the region for the last at least 30 years. So what are you seeing, Sheikh, when you're seeing the moves that are being made by Houthis? How serious should we take this, number one? Or is this, are we seeing hope? Are we seeing manipulation of things? Where are we going with this, Sheikh?
Okay, assalamu alaikum, brother. Let's recall that from the very first day of the war in Gaza, right after the 7th of October attack that Hamas was able to launch in retaliation of the occupation of the Israelis to Gaza, the United States emphasized time and time again that the war should not be extended to become a regional war. Which means United States would not allow this war to encompass other countries in the war, in particular the countries which are immediately neighboring Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, and of course what comes after them, Turkey, Iraq, etc. Now the war is dragging for more than 3 months already. the number of casualties in Gaza are in tens of thousands, not in only thousands, and including both martyrs and wounded. The destruction in Gaza is immense. The likelihood of extending the war outside the borders increases day after day because of the casualties that take place. So and the United States, as well as world intelligence apparatus, British, French, German, Russian, Chinese, they see that the Muslim Ummah from within it's burning. There is big demand to end this war, and actually yet a bigger demand to liberate entire Palestine, that's an objective of a big regional war. So in order to do this, at least to put some ice on it, not necessarily uproot it. You cannot uproot the feelings and the emotions of the Ummah. So now, every now and then, from the farthest part from Palestine, which is Yemen in this case, as far as Palestine is concerned, we have rockets started flowing into the occupying state of Palestine, the Israelis, and the Patriots are intercepting them. Then the attacks on ships in the Red Sea, that was happening in the last few weeks, let's say. So that is, at least from the perspective of enlarging the war to include the whole region, that will tell you, that will show, okay, here is the Houthis in Yemen are participating. So the Ummah can feel a bit more relaxed that they're trying thing. That something is actually not a real thing, not big. It is real, which means there are some rockets, but it's not big enough to indulge into a regional war. Now, having said that, let me backtrack a little bit to the United States. United States is a country, is a very monstrous country, if you will. Huge, it's big, it's powerful. Every time there is a big regional conflict like this one, they try to use it to the biggest extent for almost every other agenda. So one of the agendas of the United States is to keep Europe under check, to keep Europe and the European countries under check. So now the bombardment of ships in the Red Sea caused most of the ships, which are owned by European countries, by France, by Spain, by Portugal, by Germany, by all of these countries, they are forced to go the longer route, which is today in the news saying Germany, or not Germany, Britain is facing about 0.03 economic shrinking because of the cost of shipping. Now the shipping is going around the Cape Hope in South Africa, which is a very, very long trip that cost them extra billions of dollars, and that goes for Germany, goes for France, goes for the rest of the European countries. And that is something the United States would always love to do. They would love to keep these countries under check. You need our power to save you. That's a side effect from what's happening in Gaza. So it has another reason other than helping the people in Gaza. Emotionally, the emotion, of course, people would love to see that more support and help, especially firepower, that goes on behalf of the people of Gaza. But in reality, this firepower is too weak to be noticed or to have any impact. Now, the ones who really they were trying to use this security resolution immediately were not the Americans. They were the British. because the British are impacted, and in fact they said we are the most impacted country out of this dilemma in the Red Sea shipping. So they were ready to launch the attack. Now America is a leader of the world order, so they say, okay, we will go together. So going together, everybody has his own agenda. Britain has the agenda to get rid of the Houthis, who were able to outsit the Ali Abdullah Saleh and his people from the power, who were British agents. And the Houthis came with the support of Iran, and Iran has very strong ties, inherent, indirect connections and contacts with the U.S. Power. So the Houthis play on the to the interest of the United States, and this is of course evident by the Saudis trying to give the Houthis a room on in the negotiation table of Yemen. So that shows there is struggle, European American struggle there. It is visible in Yemen. But the last thing here, which I should mention before we move from the subject, is that the day after the war, which is the day after the war in Gaza, there has to be a rearrangement of the Middle East, geopolitical rearrangement, geographic, in terms of creation of new states like Palestinian state, the Israeli state. They become two prominent states in the area. Then there is the issue of Yemen, there is the issue of Sudan, the issue of Libya. All of these have to be settled. That's the day after. Now, in Yemen, United States definitely wants the Houthis to be a prominent element of the making of the new Yemen. And that is not an easy task, because Yemen has always been a Yemen, pure Arab, Middle Eastern countries, which has no ties with outside the Arab countries, like in this case Iran. So there is a new formation, the Middle East, where Iran has to be an integral part with the Houthis inside. And this is one way of granting the Houthis a permanent seat in the Yemeni makeup of the new Middle East. So that's what's happening there. Does that impact the war in Gaza anyway? Not a single bit. Not even as much as the ICJ, which has almost zero impact. Now this has below zero impact on the way the war is going in Gaza.
Sheikh, but seems like, I mean, I mean, I don't want to indulge too much in this, but because I actually want to discuss even this International Criminal Court issue with you. But the Americans, there was an attack on Houthis yesterday. But so, are you saying this is just fireworks, or?
Yes. Look, there was a news today, which was reported in the Reuters news agency, that the Americans actually had warned the Houthis of the attack, and even the locations which are targeted by the. So this is and the ones who were really serious about making fatal attacks were the British. And that's why among all of these big powers who said that they will be responding in Yemen, America and the UK are the ones who went there. America revealed to the Houthis what are the targets for the attacks in order to minimize the impact, whereas the British they were hoping that they can really do something. Now, after the attacks, now the British came back to their senses, understood that their mission is not going to be accomplished as possible. They mentioned that our only objective here is just to get a serious message to the Houthis that controlling the Red Sea by them is not an option that we will allow. We'll just give them this type of warning, but it is not an attack that would actually impose a very strong pressure on the Houthis so they will cut it off or to hurt them. So all of this is saying that, look, we just want to make a message, a strong message, that we in the Security Council, we were not joking and we really want stability in the Red Sea. So that's these attacks on the Houthis are not meaningful. Besides, in order to stop the Houthis, somebody has to tackle Iran, because Iran is the one that is moving the Houthis to do some stuff.
Sheikh, I mean, when we talk about Iran, Iran has played a very, obviously, very important role since, in Iran-Iraq war, obviously, and then in Iraq in general, then Afghanistan, and now in Yemen for the last almost 10 years. Sheikh, I mean, is this, what camp does Iran belong in? What is, I mean, that's a big question. I know it's an open question. But if in a few minutes, where does Iran belong? I mean, what is Iran getting out of this? Can Iran say that, is it the issue of nuclear power? Is it something that Iran itself is gaining that they are not sharing, that they have on the table?
Very briefly here, the issue is more complicated than a couple of minutes, but I will say the following. Before 1979, before the revolution of Iran country in the area. It was not part of the Middle East. It's not part of the old Soviet Union. It is not part. It's Iran. It's Iran. Now, after the revolution took place in Iran, there is a new position for Iran to be in, and this position is in the Middle East. And the Middle East, which is composed mainly of Arab countries, Arab in Asia and in Africa. That was the composition of the Middle East, and Iran did not belong. Similarly, Turkey did not belong into this region, and that's why Turkey was trying very hard to be part of the EU, because it doesn't want to stay a lonely country in the area with no region that it belongs to. So now Turkey was not able to get in the EU. So in the last 15 or 20 years, it has directed and focused on being part of the Middle East, to play a role within the Middle East, whether it's the getting involved in the Israeli-Arab conflicts one way or another. And similarly, Iran to be part of the Middle East. That's what the Americans plan for the Middle East. They have a plan that this is the composition. In fact, the United States had a big role for Iran to play as a stabilizing force, stabilizing military force in the Middle East, and stabilizing what? Stabilizing the growing power of the state, quote unquote, Israel. Because this state of Israel, it has to exist. As Biden says, if there was, we had to create one, and we had to create it powerful enough to protect itself, to defend itself. So it had to be not only a huge military, but even a nuclear power. Now, to stabilize Israel, America sees Iran a best fit. So Iran must be part of the Middle East. How would Iran become part of the Middle East? It needs some teeth. It needs some spearheads. So it has Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and maybe there was a time when they were looking at Bahrain, or the Shias in Bahrain, to be a spearhead for them. And there is yet in Saudi Arabia, the eastern province, in Saudi Arabia, there is a majority of Shia. That's also part of the Iranians and part of what the United States would be willing to enable Iran to do. So Iran comes to the Middle East, satellite countries like in Yemen, not necessarily all of Yemen, but at least the Houthi has sufficient power to be influential in Yemen. Hezbollah has sufficient power to be influential in Lebanon, and then some of the Shia groups in Saudi Arabia should have enough sufficient power to be part of the makeup of the Saudi Arabia, and similarly in Bahrain. So with this case, Iran now has satellites in the area. It itself, with its big weight, it's part of the Middle East. It is a stabilizing power. So all of these issues about the Houthis, Iran, that is part of the map, if you will, the geopolitical map, future Middle East, if it will be accomplished the way the Americans want. Now, does America have obstacles in the area? Of course, there are many. That's why there are big wars happening. There are many people dying because the cost of rebuilding, reshaping an area is not cheap. It becomes cheap only it becomes cheap if the blood is cheap. Otherwise, in reality, it's not. It's a blood is a blood. But for the Americans and the Europeans, if the blood is a Muslim blood, who cares? Spill as much as you can. This makes your problems softer.
Sheikh, I'm sure you're also following what's happening in South Africa. First of all, it's an interesting scenario where you have South Africa, a non-Arab, non-Muslim country, that is taking the side of the Muslims of Palestine and is taking Israel to task in the International Criminal Court of Justice. First of all, Sheikh, this is South Africa. Is it getting something out of this? Do you think there is? I've heard that there's Indonesia involved in this also, but tell me, Sheikh, is there a political reason for this, or South Africa really cares? Number one, and number two, South Africa is taking on opponents. Israel is not a small opponent, and that means United States, and then you have Britain, France, and the rest. Why it cannot be affected? Can their arms be twisted in any way if this, but for doing this, or they don't care?
Okay. Well, number one, yes, South Africa has all the package on its back that allows it to carry this type of task. Number one, South Africa was the largest, most prominent racially built state in the recent history of the world. As an apartheid, apartheid was legal in
Africa,
South Africa. It was the system, the apartheid, and apartheid means the absolute alienation of the black community from the smaller white community in Africa. This was it was real. It was constitutional. It was in the constitution. It was not something that people make up, and it continued for many years before the alliance of the African people in South Africa under the leadership of Mandela were able to topple down the apartheid. So from this perspective, South Africa feels it is its obligation to pay back to the fact that they were relieved from apartheid. So let's fight Israeli apartheid in the ICJ, in the International Court of Justice. That's from their side. That's the pure historical package on the back of the South Africans. The other thing is that somebody has to bring the issue to the ICJ. Turkey probably was one of the first countries that mentioned. In fact, Erdogan, he was preparing 1,000 lawyers to build a case against the state of the occupying state of Palestine, the Jewish state. So the options. But Turkey, at the end of the day, is a Muslim country, so some people would probably look at it as it's a biased state. So this issue of bringing a state that is supposedly very neutral, but it does understand what genocide means, and of course South Africa knows what the genocide that took place in the different places in Africa, and they did take a role in the genocides that took place in Africa. So during the apartheid time. So the choice of South Africa was a smart choice. That's one thing. But from the impact perspective, let's see now, would the world, especially world powers like United States, Britain, Russia, China, would allow that to happen or not? Well, let me just read a quote from the reports on the ongoing episode in The Hague. It says a decision on that request, which is the request of convicting the Israelis or even having a response for that conviction, for that for that decree, if it's ever made against the Israelis. It says will probably take weeks.
If not
the
months.
decision will take weeks, and the full case is likely to last years. At the beginning, just the request itself to shape up a decision, it will take weeks. But then the whole case, until it's settled, it will take years. And here is the next quote. It is unclear, and it's very soft word, it's unclear if Israel would follow any court orders. So while all of these things, rhetorics is happening, that's what is being stated in bold letters, today, which was a few hours ago, coming from the analysis reports from political statements on this issue. This thing will take weeks to wrap it up. It will take years to complete the case, and then the one that is supposed to respond to this, it will not follow orders. It will not even look at these things. It will, in fact, Israel is not a country that signed the convention of the International Court of Justice. America did not sign it. America is not a signer of this. In fact, if you look at most of the significant these organizations that have some public opinions, America is not part of it. America does not sign treaties. They are above and beyond world treaties until and unless they are the ones who are making it, and it's within their interest, like the Security Council of the United Nations. That's will not leave it because they have a veto power. Places where they don't have a veto power, they will just not sign it. So America is not part of the ICJ. Israel is not part of the ICJ, and I'm not sure which other countries are not signees for this. So this is
even Putin was taken to ICJ. He's flying around everywhere, wherever he wants.
Yeah, true. And al-Bashir of Sudan, he was trialed in the ICJ, and he was traveling wherever he wanted. So this is, it's a joke. But this joke, it's used sometimes for people to play with. When you have your kids are making lots of noise, the best way to cool them down, just give them a toy to play with. The world has started talking about human rights, human genocides, etc. The violation, there is no more weight for anything that has to do with the human rights, people, children, women, etc. Everything is being annihilated by the forces of the Israeli, quote unquote, Israeli state. That's people have now downplayed everything that has to do with what is called the rights of children, rights of women, right of people, right to live, right to drink, right for food, right for aid, right for all this is demolished now. So now we bring up the ICJ, say, oh, we have this world tribunal. Let's come to the tribunal and let's have all of these judges with all of these hairs, fluffy hairs from the old British style, wearing them on their heads. And in front of the world, let's portray it. Oh, we are giving back, we are putting back some makeup on the of so-called international rights, human rights, which have been not only diminished, have been crushed under the feet of Netanyahu and his people and his army and his state. So now, giving one more push to the people that there is something that you can play with. There is give the people something to play with, something called international ICJ,
Sheikh,
international tribunal.
we understand that I mean, it will really have no political impact on Israel or even any of these states have been part of this thing. But Sheikh, does that where does it put Israel? Where does Israel stand? I mean, as far as it's standing morally, if that means anything, is there is there an impact? Is Israel same after the verdict? If whatever the verdict is, let's say, is Israel as far as American support?
The verdict which would come from the ICJ has zero weight against
that.
Israel.
I understand.
Zero
I understand
weight.
that. But as far as can it ever stand as far as the only supposed the only democracy in the Middle East, supposedly the only country that cares for human rights? All of this, is it going somewhere? Is there no? I mean, you're saying there is no political impact at all, but
at all. Look, the rhetorics about democracy and human rights, these are rhetorics. And when you come and find that the United States that keeps crying on human rights, they are the ones who do not sign the treaties on human rights. They are the ones who never abide by anything that has to do with the human rights. Otherwise, how would it possible that America will get away with suffocating what's his name, the African American who was
George Floyd.
How would it get away with George Floyd death? Even if it's a one person that represents an entire population of African Americans, how could they get away with that? America gets away with it. Its puppets, its children, like Israel, like Taiwan, like Korea, the ones that really not only satellites, but these are babies, American babies. They get away with everything. So when it comes to these, I would call them toys that America and the world order established after the Second World War. One of them, only one has teeth, which is the Security Council, the only one that has teeth. It has Chapter 7, that if it's utilized, then you can use power. It has teeth. And not only that, if Security Council passes a rule without the Chapter 7, which enables the world powers to use their forces, then any country from the Security Council permanent members can take the law in their hand and try to implement the resolution, just like the one in Yemen, which you asked me earlier. Yemen, there was a resolution not under the Chapter 7, which is the navigation in the Red Sea within close to the Yemeni ports of Bab al-Mandeb or the Aden port must be protected, and no violation, no one can can stop the navigation there and all of this rhetoric, then United States and Britain takes the law and go and implement it. So Security Council does have. Everything else has no teeth. Not the United Nations organization, not the ICJ, not any human rights organizations. These are just they make statements, they make recommendations. Who cares? Who cares at the end of the day? Now, why do they exist? They exist in order for America and Britain and France to hide behind them. You hide behind this, you say, okay, you have a grievance, go to the Security Council and we will block it, we have veto. Oh, you don't like Security Council? Go to the United Nations General Assembly. There you have more than 190 states which you can enjoy the big rhetorics there. Or you don't like United Nations? Go to the International
Court of Justice,
the ICJ. Go to International Tribunal.
But Sheikh, this guy from Serbian, Slobodan Milosevic, was taken to court, right? I mean, he was taken to court. He was, he died in isolation, some type of a confinement. But Sheikh, there are questions out there. I mean, a lot of people, I was watching Al Jazeera on this issue the other day. There's a lot of questioning going on, how far this can go. But the discussion was also that it seems that it's always the global south that is impacted by the ICJ. It's always the poor countries, that are affected by what happens. They can be taken accountable. How true is that? Can whatever global south means today, is it made for them to keep them in check?
The question is, who has the guts and the power to go and implement a verdict by the ICJ? Who has the guts? Even when Milosevic was brought to justice, to the World Tribunal, and he spent his time until his last days, until he died, he was never released. If the United States was not behind bringing Milosevic to the World Court, no one could. No one else could. He did not come by himself. He did not simply move in and said, okay, I surrender myself to you. Otherwise, the Sudani president would have been brought into justice by so-called, because you are ordered to come, please come and show up. Putin would have come up to the ICJ and put himself under arrest for his atrocities. Well, Biden or Trump would have been brought to justice, if you will, for the George Floyd thing, or for even the...
But Sheikh, who created the ICJ? ICJ has been created by the United Nations, isn't it?
ICJ was drafted in 1948 after the Second World War, just like other world organizations like the United Nations Security Council, World Bank, World Trade Organizations, the Tariff Organization. All of them were drafted between 1945 and 1948. 1950 was ratified by 20 countries in the world. 20 countries, they signed the treaty, and later on countries started joining and signing. The ones among those who never signed the covenant of the ICJ is the United States and Israel. I'm pretty sure there might be other ones which I'm not fluent on that, but I can up and see who signed these. But that's how it came into existence. Starting, all of these world organizations were created after the Second World War in order to maintain a new world order that emerged after the Second World War, and mainly to protect the superpowers which emerged after the Second World War. And that's why they had the Security Council with permanent big ones, America, France, China and the Soviet Union at the time. Now it's Russia, and the rest of the world. They are just orchestra. And aside from that, those big powers, especially United States at the time, they made other organizations to be barriers between them and the world nations. You have a grievance against me, go to the ICJ. You have a problem with me, go to the United Nations Assembly, because if you come to the Security Council, I will veto you. I have a veto, I can stop, so you cannot complain against me in the Security Council because I own the Security Council. The World Organization, the UN, is yours. It's for all the people. Go there and complain. And you go there, just like the other day, 95% of the countries in the world, which are members of the United Nations, they voted to stop the war in Gaza immediately.
And then it was
95%
vetoed by
of
the
the
United
world.
States. Yeah.
No, not the veto. No, this is not where the Security Council veto. We're talking the General Assembly, because that's what the United States would say. Guys, people of the world, you don't like the Security Council because there I am the big guy, I can veto, I can stop that. Go to the General Assembly. There is no veto there. You go and you get the maximum number of votes. 95% of the countries voted to stop the war immediately, and nobody listens. The ones who are fighting on the ground, Israel does not listen, and America tells them, don't worry about it, just go on, I'm backing you up. Then the 95% of the world goes down the drain. This brings me to a point which I think we need to bring it up in one whole session. What is the purpose of world organizations?
Yes, I mean,
And who,
that's a question I had now, because
Yeah.
now you're discussing institutions, and even how they emerge. What's Sheikh? The countries that are I guess the question would be, once the League of Nations was formed, that was an institution, but before that they had to put together the nations in order to put together what's called the League of Nations. Are these countries, other than being colonies, are they institutions that are, can you call these countries institutions rather than nations?
well, they are these countries, these institutions, as I said, they were carefully built
Right.
and architected
Right.
and designed by the superpowers in order for these superpowers to hide behind them. These are like a blockade.
Mm.
So you stay behind these big walls, you call them the League of Nations at the time, or the United Nations, and leave me alone. You cannot reach me. I am unreachable. I'm the United States. You cannot reach me. You can complain against me. You can cry out in the United Nations. Remember how Gaddafi cried out in the United Nations, and he threw the UN what do you call it, the UN book or articles. He threw it in the garbage and he threw it down. He said, "Take all of this and stuff it." It's okay. You voice your opinion and people would clap for him, but then what?
Mm.
The big power, it's unreachable. And the United States, if it wants to protect Israel, it will. It will tell Israel, just don't worry about it. Nobody can touch you. I'm behind you. And let the people cry. So United Nations is like what they call it in, Israel, the place in Masjid al-Aqsa that they want to destroy the whole masjid. Hayat al-Mabka, the weeping wall.
Mm.
There is a weeping wall.
Mm.
So go weep, go and cry in the United Nations, but don't bring your weapons with you, because that's a weeping wall. So you go and weep in the ICJ, you go and weep in the United Nations General Assembly, you go and weep in the World Trade Organizations, you go and weep wherever you want, but at the end of the day, for the finances, the IMF is the one that makes policies and decisions, which is in the hand of the United States. At the end of the day, the Security Council is the one that controls the entire world. And at the end of the day, even the Security Council, and it will not be able to do anything because I can always do the veto. So this whole organization needs to be dismantled. These world organizations that were built have to be dismantled, and there is no way to dismantle these organizations until and unless you have a new world order created by an ideology, a system that is out of the box. That's neither capitalistic nor socialistic. It's not nationalistic. It's not one of these big powers that exist in the world. That's the only way for the world to live in a different conditions, in peace, in tranquility.
Sheikh,
as we
just
see
a
it,
question here. You were saying that, look, I mean, obviously Gaddafi knew, and some of the others, they knew the reality of these institutions. But Sheikh, why did they never take a stand as far as saying that why didn't there was no revolt by them? There was
they? How could they? How could they? Even today, there was a time, brother, when Tito and Abdel Nasser and not Gandhi, the Nehru, Jalal Nehru, they formed the League of Independent States, or the Organizations of Independent States, in order to counter the power of the Soviet bloc and the US bloc. But at the end of the day, it was an escape rather than a solution. So if you want to escape away from the UN, but you cannot escape, not the UN, escape the power of NATO or the Warsaw Pact, come to us, to the countries of the Organization of Independent States. But this was also another weeping wall. It was not a solution. Now,
like OIC,
Gaddafi,
in many ways.
Yeah, the OIC, the Organization of Independent States. The OIC, it was another weeping wall. Just go and talk about how bad it is in the world, how bad it's in the NATO and the Warsaw, but you cannot oppose it. You don't have the teeth to do that. You have to have a teeth. You have to have power. You have to have legitimacy. You have to have an idea. You have to have a new system, a new ideology. None of them had it. Neither Tito, nor Nehru, nor Abdel Nasser, nor any of these big guys. They had it. Recently, Gaddafi did not have it. Abdel did not have it. The other ones did not have it. Today, no country in the world has what it takes to replace the world order by something that is decent, applicable, and works for the sake of humans and humanity. None at all. Zero. Now, could it happen? Yes, of course. I advocate the rise of the Islamic State and the rise of the Islamic ideology because it has what it takes to become a world dominant power and to provide justice for all, without all of these games that are played by Security Council, United Nations. And we will, if we have the Islamic State the way we think it should be, which it will encounter more than 55, 56 states in the current world, all of these will withdraw, will take away from the United Nations, and will have their own organization, could engage the entire world in order to dismantle United Nations, to dismantle the Security Council that has a veto power. Simply because you have a nuclear power, you can veto everything else. What type of law is this? So that the rise of such state, which is called the Islamic State, the Khilafah State, the state that encompasses the entire Muslim world, no matter how difficult it looks or it seems, but it's a viable solution. It's a viable solution. It's a world viable solution. The world needs it, not me. I don't need it. I live without it. I worship Allah Azza wa Jal the way I want, in my sleeping, in my walking, in my day life, in my eating, in my praying, in my fasting, in my Hajj, in my Umrah, in everything. I am a person of God. Call me that. I can worship Allah Azza wa Jal day and night, and I can get my justice based on what Allah Azza wa Jal says. I can manage that. But it's for me. It's not for the 2 billion Muslims. It's for the entire world. The 2 billion Muslims, even you've seen how in Gaza they are being destroyed, crushed, killed. Their blood is shit down on the ground, and they continue to say, "Oh Allah, thank you." You can't beat that. You cannot beat that. No one in the world can even come close to this. So it's not really the Gaza people and all the Muslims, by the way, in Kashmir and Myanmar and Uyghur, in Libya, all of them, they have the same mentality like the people in Gaza. But 1% of this, once it happens on top of the people in Colombia, they will be out of the world. They will just be scared out of their own life. They cannot tolerate it. Injustice, world injustice, it can never be tolerated until and unless you rely on the justice of the Almighty above all of that. And the only ones who have that are us, the Muslims. So when we say we need this Islam to come and to dominate the world so that people will get the justice that they have never gotten it in their life. And they cannot replace it by their own inner belief. We can, it's not tolerating oppression, but we can handle it. And we have seen how the people in Gaza do that. They handle it. They can handle it. No one else in the world can handle it but Muslims. Absolutely none. They can't, because it's a deep inside ideology, idea, faith, thinking, mentality, emotions. It's all as one pot inside the body. So the oppression is not something to be tolerated, but at least I can overcome it. That's why we are saying, look, people of the world, you have seen United Nations, Security Council, ICJ, the one that will take many years to even finish the case. And then no one is going to listen. That's what's being reported in the media today. So you see all of this. You see how today there is Germany is trying to get permission to stand up on the tribunal in order to defend that what the Jewish state is doing in Palestine has nothing to do with genocide, has nothing to do with aggression against the humanity. Germany, the one that was convicted being anti-Semitic, the one that continues to pay ransom until today to the Israeli country, is coming out and saying, no, that's not genocide. Then what the heck you have done what you have done in Holocaust? Why is it termed as genocide and this is not? So today the world has gone insane, brother. The world has gone insane. And the only way to resolve this issue is to bring a new ideology and system that's internally sane, internally. It doesn't have to gain sanity simply because it lives in a good world. It's internally. It has what it takes to provide insanity to the world, to sanity. It is not. The world today is inherently insane.
I mean, this
You
is
need a different world that.
The idea of institutions, Sheikh, because of the time here, the ideas of institutions is this because the way they have been structured, the way where people can never get justice, and even when people do try to get justice, they've been, it's a you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait and until death comes to you, and so this seems to be, I mean, a whole structure put together, as you were saying. I mean, it takes a whole we have to dismantle the whole system rather than reaching out to institutions. But it's just that the Muslims, I guess they're shocked that at least they're seeing one country is taking a stand. and other than any other countries, we haven't seen anybody else take anything. No stand has been taken, not even pulling back of some minister or something like this. Nothing at all. But
No,
interesting to see.
nothing at all. Nothing at the political level. Nothing at all. It's at individual groups, political parties. Yes, there are, but it has not materialized yet into a
True.
viable statehood that can bring a change or can carry the torch of change to the world. This
Sheikh,
has not
final
happened,
question
and it's
here.
not
Is this,
happening yet.
in your observation, is this the first time something like this is occurring, where a world power is able to really to do what it's doing in this way? I mean, Britain was there. They had to face, I mean, at least there was Islamic State at the time, Uthmani Khilafah was there. I mean, this much freedom to do as you wish. Is this the first time, or has it happened in the past and they have been dismantled?
Well, no, the world atrocities or atrocial type of order in the world, it has been many times in this world. It's not the first time. The difference that throughout the history, especially the recent 2000 years history, there were powers that came into existence and they were able to challenge the atrocial orders maintained by the Romans, by the Persians, later on by some European countries, and earlier at the time of Moses, the Pharaoh of Egypt, there were. But in the current history that we live in, for the last 100 years, the dominance of tyranny, of tyrannical states, has never been like this. There were forms of tyranny in the world, but this century, the 20th century, which ended 24 years ago, and this 21st century, we are in its first quarter now, finishing the quarter, I don't see that it was precedented before at this scale. At this scale, it did exist at different minor scales, like in America, the genocide that took place against the locals, that was 200 some or 200, 300 years ago. It was a fact. The genocide that took place in Africa with the Zulus, with the other tribes that were almost completely annihilated. There were tribes that don't exist anymore in Africa, which used to count in millions. So it did exist, but it's locally within that place. But now what's happening in Gaza, it's not local, it's global. It's in front of the whole world. The whole world is watching 24 hours in front of the CNN, Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, all of these. People are 24 hours watching genocide in front of their eyes, and the world is unable to move a hand, is unable to stop a bullet, is unable to stop one crushing of a building, is unable to stop the murder of yet one more child. The whole world. That is unprecedented. Unprecedented. As I mentioned, when America did what it did to the locals, to the indigenous people, there were no one watching. It was all isolated in the far islands of Americas. Nobody even knew about that. Until today, people don't know what happened there. Same thing what happened in Africa. It was all in the darknesses of the jungles of Africa. Nobody knew about that. It was done in cold blood, but it was not visible. It's a murder. It's a big crime. But it was not the observation of people. Today, people are being slaughtered in front of their children, in front of their mothers, in front of their parents. And when the parents, they are so shocked, so depressed, so angry because of their children being killed in front of them, then you come and slaughter them again. After they watch. This has never happened in the history. So today, there is no more reason, no more reason for this war to continue the way it is. I'm not talking only Gaza or
No, sir.
Palestine.
No,
That's only the example, or that the focal point. But this focal point represents the entire universe, entire world.
but Sheikh,
Is
I know I said that's the last
yeah,
question, but this is the last question here. But Sheikh, the response of humanity, response of humanity in general, or response of human beings, response of Muslims, uh, these kind of, I mean, you would think a murder at this scale would cause revolutions to occur. It would you would think that it would shake capitals of the world, whether Muslim or not Muslim. But we are not seeing anything really of that level. I mean, has there been? I mean, human beings, have they evolved in a sense that this is now a normal state of being? That murder, genocides are going to be just normal, and it's just now you're getting rid of populations that need to be.
yes,
This is
yeah,
a
yeah,
new. Am I?
yes. It
I
is
don't
a
know if
new.
I'm
No,
going
no,
through.
you are right. You are right. It's the new humans today in the world. The machines, let's
Mm,
call it the world order machines, the capitalist, the media, the money, the finances, had reshaped the natural response of humans. And this natural response, which should have been the pure political act in order to overthrow and to remove all of these regimes in the world that had created this mess. And this has been replaced by what is called the emotional response. Emotional response. Look at the Muslim world, the Muslims even. The taming of Muslims. Raise your hands for dua
right, just
to Allah Azza wa
domesticated
Jal. Look,
nonsense.
yes, it's taming our responses. So instead of the response that this is a violence that's happening to the people, it's killing, murder, you have to grab the hand of the criminal, stop it immediately, and break it, so it will never be able to carry a sword to kill someone else. That response, that's a political response. That's a political ideological response. Now you cannot now do that. Then you have to do what it takes to make you able to do it.
Mm.
Because the only solution to what's happening in Gaza today is to be able by force to stop this murder and to punish the murderer and the criminal and to kick him out of this whole world arena. That's the only response. But that response, that's a deep political response based on thoughts. We have been tamed by our media, by our even religions, Christians, Muslims, etc., Jews, by those big with big turbans to come and tell you you have to pray all night so that you can remove. Look, you keep
But you
praying
cannot
all
speak
night
against.
while you are bound down, your head is on the ground. They would chop the heads of a million people while your head is on the ground, and you think that you are doing something good. So the political response, the political angle or element,
Political will, even, yeah.
political will and the element of the ideology you believe in has been snatched out.
Yeah, but Sheikh, it's been everyone has responded this way. So,
Yes.
so the way I'm listening to you, I'm saying, okay, so let's say other than the Muslims, so the humanity other than the Muslims, they have been. So it's just what has happened to them? Then they're deaf, dumb, and they've been dumbed down. They cannot. They're not responding to anything. And then the Muslims, it's complete. It's
No,
a
no,
very
no, no,
amazing
no,
time,
no,
Sheikh. To
brother.
be honest, I mean, I to see the Muslims in Egypt not move at all, not even an inch. 115 million or something like this. And then you have Jordan, you have Pakistan, you have get all of these things, and people are, worried more about sports and what happens in with some football game or soccer game or cricket game. I never thought that we would reach this level of decline in as human beings in general. I mean, it's
Well, look, this is capitalism and democracy at work. They have learned that you cannot crush the ability of a human to respond, but you can twist your response. It's just like you don't like to drink Pepsi Cola with lots of sugar. I will give you Diet Pepsi. I will give you zero cola. I will give you alternatives. I will give you the alternatives, because if I don't give you the alternatives, you are going to respond with your own response. So today the world has been taught by the media, by the education system, by all types of current political systems, in order to respond in the wrong direction, or to have a response that does not have the real impact. So, like, what can we do? Look, in Jordan, we have been demonstrating every Friday from all the masajid. You get tens or hundreds of thousands of people chanting Palestine, 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 and then we go home. Finish.
Yeah.
We wait for the next Friday. That's a response. A response in Denmark. I saw more than 2 million people were marching along the ways. In The Hague, in Holland, for this tribunal things.
ICJ. Yeah.
People are doing it. This is a taming. Look, in America, when they talk about freedom of speech, they say, you know what you will do? Go and elect your congressman or senator, and then from this time on, you have done your job. You have a representative. But your representative is corrupt. He's corrupt. And he has his own agenda, whether you elected him or not. And then your job is done. This is democracy. So the people now, in general, whether it's democracy or capitalism or socialism or whatever, I give you alternatives. None of the alternatives are there to challenge the status quo. Challenging the status quo is called treason. You are committing treason if you challenge the status quo. If you stand up, if I will stand up and talk about the ideas of Islam for all day long, no one is going to tell me you are right or wrong. But the moment I come to one ayah and say, this ayah says that the current regime and the status quo is corrupt and must be changed, and it's not allowed and does not please Allah Azza wa Jal to listen and obey to them. Just like Allah Azza wa Jal told Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the first surah, كَلَّا لَا تُطِعْهُ وَاسْجُدْ وَاقْتَرِبْ. No, do not obey him, to the elite of Mecca, and bow down only to Allah. That is a revolution. Now, show me in all the tafsirs that we read and all the scholars where someone comes to this ayah and says this is a call for civil disobedience in the face of tyranny. You will not see that. And if you say it, they will tell you, oh, you went against the Mufassirin, brother. That is where do you get this from? How did you get there? You'll find thousands of these scholars who are educated in Mecca, in Medina, in Egypt, in Cairo, in Damascus, in Amman, in Baghdad. They will come and tell you, in Islam there is nothing called revolutionary ideas.
No rebellion, nothing. Just accept
And
being slaughtered
yeah,
like sheep. Yeah.
and the same thing in other ideologies, by the way. Same thing in democracy. You are free to speak as much as you can, but you are not allowed to stand against the status quo. You remember the what do you call the Black Panthers in the United States, the whole, or the Panthers in general, and the time of the McCarthy era. Anyone who speaks that status quo must be changed.
Didn't but tyranny is usually, new ideologies were formed in these times. I mean, no matter what, the tyranny of capitalism formed communism, and communism came, and then of course Islam. But Sheikh, let's say if the Muslims don't stand up for their ideology, their Islam, are you thinking that are there people that could think of a new uh, ideological a new idea? Is that possible in today's world, or all the ideas have been taken?
No, no, no. In the scope of human mind, there is no limit. Human mind is always capable of coming up with new ideas, new thoughts, new ideologies, innovations, inventions in ideas as well as in technologies and ongoing. So I would put it in a different way. If the Muslims do not take the initiative in their hands, some other people will.
Yeah, because tyranny
And then
is, it's against human nature.
Yes, it is against human nature for oppression to dominate forever. Yes, it is. So there is an opportunity for the Muslim Ummah to take the opportunity now, seize it, seize the time, seize the moment, seize the opportunity, and bring up your Islam, your ideas, your thoughts, your ideology to the front, and raise it up to the highest level possible. Make it in a state, in a system, in a civilization. Bring it up to the wall. It's your time, it's your chance, it's your opportunity. You don't do it, some other people will. In fact, Allah Azza wa Jal even saying that, not only me. Allah says, فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا يَسْتَبْدِلْ قَوْمًا غَيْرَكُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَكُونُوا أَمْثَالَكُمْ. And if you reject, if you fail to do whatever it takes, whatever is needed, if you fail, Allah will replace you with yet another ummah, another people who would be much better than you, and they will do it. ثُمَّ لَا يَكُونُوا أَمْثَالَكُمْ. They will not be like you. You guys, you are a failure. Allah Azza wa Jal does not like failures or failing people. Allah gives you an idea, give you a thought, give you a system, give you a deen. Say, take it and go up with it. You fail in this world, and in the hereafter I will send you to hell. I will punish you even there. And then I will bring more other people who can carry the message and the torch and whatever it makes justice in this world. So today, brother, I think it is an opportunity for the Muslim Ummah. I cannot say it's the last or the pre-last. Allah Azza wa Jal knows better. But it is an opportunity. The world, entire world needs justice. Entire world needs to get out of this tyranny. Entire world needs to stop this mess. Entire world needs to give dignity one more time to the human being that Allah created. And it does not exist. And Allah Azza wa Jal has shown the path and given this path, this message to a group of people called the Muslims. Either the Muslims stand up to the challenge, or they will fail and they become the ones who are guilty not only of living in oppression, but of allowing oppression to sustain.
With that, inshallah, Rabbul Alameen, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Abu Talha. I can't add it better than that. Either you stand up for something, or we'll pay for that both in this dunya and the akhirah. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Abu Talha. Inshallah, we'll see you next time. And brothers and sisters, for the rest of you, inshallah, Jazakallah khair for attending. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from us and you. The efforts that we are doing to change the mindset of the people. At the end of the day, we are living in times unacceptable. And as I said, it's a question that I had. How is it that human beings are accepting this level of tyranny and not looking for solutions? It's beyond. It's a very difficult, sad, and times of decline that we're living in as human beings across the world. That this type of killing can be acceptable, and there's no change. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل همام، نحن فينا عمر، لا 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 لن يطول الظلام، ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل همام، نحن فينا عمر. صبح بدا نور ظهر، نجم وشمس وقمر، ألقى على الدنيا الدرر، هذا عمر هذا عمر. كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر، كي تستفيد من العبر، هذا عمر هذا عمر. لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح، نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن فينا عمر، لا لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح،